Cool. So we are preparing to live stream for our buddies just joining us. Let us know where you're from and what industry you're in the chat. And I am just waiting for our friendly progress bar to finish loading on YouTube. Cool. Awesome. Welcome. We're super excited to be here on an event tonight about stories of being first gen in tech with our host Amy and panelists Milan, Drew, Koji, Miguel, and Vivianne. And with that, I'll quickly introduce Design Buddies as well and share some really quick slides. So I'm Grace. I founded Design Buddies in April of 2020. It was just this random Discord server I made because I wanted to make some buddies in design when I was beginning my design journey after graduating from undergrad. And then since then, we've grown to over 33,000 members on Discord now, and we have a lot of friendly events like this, a lot of workshops, resources, mentorships, and stuff going on in our Discord community. And we've hosted, actually, this is not updated, but we hosted, I counted over 100 events now since April of 2020, and we have a lot of very great resources and great people in our community. So you're welcome to join, connect with us. And just a quick house rules, events are recorded, so we can go back and watch anytime you want on a YouTube channel. If you don't wish to be recorded, you can head over to YouTube and search Design Buddies. We should be up top. Feel free to engage in the chat as well. If any of our panelists say something that y'all vibe with, definitely let us know in the chat. We also will be sharing a networking sheet where you can share all of your promotional links in, but I've been trying something new at our events. Like towards the end, we usually let people just to plug away. And so if you stay towards the end, just plug your LinkedIn, your businesses, your stuff in the chat where buddies can connect with you as well. But during your event, please keep those in the networking sheet. We took some questions from our community, so we won't be using Slido, but we have a whole, but feel free to drop any questions in the chat if you have any. Towards the end, we also like to take some group selfies, and we also have some Zoom backgrounds for y'all to use in case you want to twin with us. Feel free to share if something like really vibes with you, you really want to share it, definitely share it on social media, tag Design Buddies, tag all of our panelists to be reshared, and connect with each other, hop into a Discord, have fun, and thank you. And with that, I'll kick it off to Amy.
Thanks so much, Grace. I'm so excited for this chat. So yeah, to kick things off, right? The topic of conversation today is first gen in tech. So what does that mean? First generation immigrants usually are born in a different place than their families, or immigrate and build a life in a different country than they were born in. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means to each of us, but generally we're going to be discussing how that's shaped all of our careers in tech and specifically design. So maybe it makes sense to start off with some intros from the panelists before diving into questions. So I'll start off. I'm Amy Lima. I am a first generation American by way of Brazil. So both of my parents immigrated from Brazil to the United States. I was born in the United States, and I'm a product designer at Pinterest, working on the creation team there, which is super exciting. And I'll kick it off to Milan, if you want to share, how you identify as first gen and where you work.
Hello, everyone. I'm Milan, she, her. My mom immigrated from Vietnam when she was 9 years old with her 10 siblings and her mom, which is a single mom. But I was born in Seoul, Korea on a military base. My dad was in the military. I am a senior product designer at Slack currently, which is my first big tech job. Previously, I've been at startups and things. And let's see, what else? I'm based out of the Bay Area and also Hawaii. Me and my partner bought a house here during the pandemic. So hello from Kauai. Very excited to chat with y'all today. I'll pass it to Miguel.
Thanks, Milan. Hey, what's going on, y'all? First of all, thank you, Grace, Amy, and Design Buddies for having me. Super excited to be here. Should be a really, really great discussion. So yeah, as I said, my name is Miguel. I am the director of design at a small startup agency based in Brooklyn named Hetty. I am a first generation American. So my parents were both born in Mexico, and I grew up in a Spanish speaking household and all of that. So excited to talk more about that throughout the discussion. And I'm currently based in the New York City area. So excited to be here. Thanks so much. And I'll pass it over to Andrew.
Hey, good night, good afternoon. I'm Andrew, or Drew. I'm originally born and raised in Jamaica. I'm currently based in Toronto. I'm a product designer at Wayfair. I work on the supplier-facing portal at Wayfair. Yeah, it's a little bit about me. I'm happy to be sharing the panel stage with some people that I really, really admire and look up to. And I'll pass it to Vivianne.
What's good? I'm Vivianne Castillo, based in Chicago. I am the founder of Humanity Centered. We are a professional growth group and consultancy, and we help people be more, we help people do the personal work required to do their best professional work. So previous life, coming from a counseling and human services background, made a switch into big tech corporate America. Technically I'm first gen, but I don't know if I necessarily feel that way or had maybe that experience. I will say my mom is half Korean, half Jamaican, moved to the States from South Korea when she was young, in middle school. And so very much had the kind of stereotypical immigrant Asian mom upbringing, you know, didn't get beatings as a kid, had to do book reports kind of thing. And yeah, I work as a researcher and consultant right now, and I'm the first one in my family to be in the tech industry. So that's me. Trying to think who do I need to pass it to?
I think it's
Koji.
me.
It's you.
Yes.
Koji time.
Well, hi everybody. My name is Koji. First, thank you so much for the invite, Grace and Amy, and everybody who is here in this panel, and everybody who is, you know, just participating to this. This is very exciting, and it's nice to be here. So I moved to US about 7 years ago from Brazil. That's where I grew up in a kind of a rough neighborhood there in Brazil. So for me, being here, it makes me very grateful. My father is Japanese, but I didn't grow up with my father. So my mom is the real hero behind everything. She really, like, you know, took care of 5 different kids and by herself without any diploma. So I was the first in my family to go to college too. And of course, first in tech. What else? Yeah, I'm a tutor right now. I'm a manager, design manager. I live in San Francisco, and that's where I spent my whole time so far in US.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's all of us. There's so much, yeah, just even in those intros that we can dive into, but I think we'll kind of organically get into it through some of these really great questions that were submitted. So maybe it makes sense to just dive right in. The first question we have here is, what was it that drew you to tech in the first place, especially being first gen? Does anyone want to go first? We can do kind of, you know, anyone can unmute themselves. Happy to kick it off. Anyone? I could start. So what was it that drew me to tech in the first place? So similar to a lot of panelists here, I'm first gen kind of everything, right? Or what does first gen mean to me? So my parents immigrated to the States, right? So I was their American baby, like born on American soil, like great. That was the point. But then I was the first person in the family, you know, not only to be born in North America, I was the first person to go to college and then ultimately get a university degree. And then of course now working in tech. So, you know, the concept of this kind of generational success and incremental, you know, improvements to like what came before, like that's been deeply ingrained in me. But what drew me to tech specifically? growing up, I'm also an only child. So, and don't have any other family in the US actually. So it was just me and my parents growing up in the US. So for me, I was always an early adopter of technology, digital platforms, social networks. We're talking like pre-Facebook and pre-MySpace. Koji, I think you actually used to work at Orkut, right? The OG, I remember those days. So for me, tech was a way for me to be able to connect with my family, like when kids were going to their grandma's house every Sunday for dinner, or, Super Bowl with their extended family. Like I just didn't have any of that. It was a very isolated upbringing. So for me, technology was a way to bridge that gap. I remember when, I first joined WhatsApp, and suddenly, I could connect with my family at the palm of my hand, or we can suddenly FaceTime now, which was revolutionary, truly, to be able to even see them more than once a year, right? So, the opportunity to have a hand in shaping those experiences and the technologies that can connect people with each other in similar ways is, personally what drew me to the field. And that's why I'm excited about designing products for community that foster connections interpersonally for that reason. So that's my why. If anyone else, feel free to just hop off mute.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, so I started my career in the realm of counseling, specifically trauma and addiction counseling. And I ended up getting into tech more so by accident. I didn't even realize tech jobs were like a thing. Coming from my mom, who's half Korean, half Jamaican, what I saw in the chat, kind of hopes and dreams for me to like go into law or go into these professions that I clearly did not go into. And I kind of stumbled upon UX specifically when I was doing trauma therapy. I had a mentor encourage me to find a creative hobby with a beginning and an end, because with counseling, you never finish something. So something to like start and finish and move on as almost like a therapeutic practice. And at the time I was like learning more about coding and stuff just out of curiosity. And through that, discovered this thing around UX. And I'd never heard of UX. And so I just kind of went down this rabbit hole and discovered through that UX research and found that a lot of what I did as a therapist crossed over into UX research. And that was kind of my introduction to it. It was totally by fluke and by chance. But I think what keeps me in this industry, because I think if you actually care about being human-centered in UX, I think it's natural to have moments where you're like, this industry is garbage and they're all hypocrites. And you might just like, I think I want to leave and quit. But I think what keeps me in this industry is something that one of my colleagues always talks about in terms of critique is a signal of hope, and hope isn't a scarcity. And so I feel like what keeps me here is hope that we can make things better, that things can be better. And I get to connect with folks like you and some of the other like dope panelists who are also in line with that vision. So, yeah.
I could piggyback off of that. Oh, Drew, I saw you on mute. Sorry. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I could go, I guess, because I think my story is pretty similar to Vivianne's. Got into it by accident, never knew anything about UX. I was decided like let me start from the beginning actually. So I had a computer like very early. I think my household was a little bit different from traditional Jamaican households in that both my parents are entrepreneurs. So they kind of pushed me to think outside of the box. So it wasn't the traditional, oh, be a lawyer, doctor, that type of vibe. So I had that motivation. Throughout life, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And a lot of the things that I was doing weren't really fulfilling. I started learning code, and then I was actually signing up for a boot camp, and you know how they send all these marketing emails. So when I got one of them, I actually saw UX design, and I was like, what is this? I was designing all my life. My undergrad's in architecture. I was doing technical drawing in high school and stuff. So I started doing research into it, went down that rabbit hole. I actually went to a mini workshop at Brain Station, and that's kind of when I was like, okay, this is what I wanted to do. And there was a lot of alignment. I think one, I wanted to work remotely. I wanted to have flexibility in the way I worked. So whether or not I wanted to work a 9 to 5 job or freelance. And one thing for me that's huge is representation. I think like while I was going to school, I wasn't like I was a really rebellious kid. One of the reasons I probably didn't get kicked out of school is because I got good grades. But I was always like, I had like a unique experience. So in Jamaica, the schooling is really regimented. I used to skip classes a lot. Then I came to Toronto. I did my last year of high school here, and it was just a different way of learning. And I realized that like nobody was like over my back trying to whip you, go to class, yada yada yada. So I was like, I noticed I was not skipping class. I was just really engaged in learning. And then I think through tech, I was able to like be an example to other people and actively work on products that are specific to like reframing the way people are taught. And that's one of the things that kind of drew me to tech. And I have a lot of interest in like different types of problems and stuff like that. And I have like my interests change constantly. And I think like design and tech is one of the fields where you can work on things that you want to, depending on how you feel at a certain point in life.
Cool. Yeah, I was going to jump in there because I feel the same way as Drew and Vivianne. Though I don't know if I would say that it was by accident. For me, it was more so I never really said I'm going to break into tech. And that's even one of the messages that I wanted to come into tonight with. Everything is tech. So like, what does that even mean? For me, it came out of a place of frustration. Growing up Latino, growing up in a Spanish speaking household, a lot of the products and services in New York City weren't very accessible. So I didn't really know what that word was. I just know that when I was young, I was frustrated that I had to help my parents fill things out that parents should be filling out for their kids, right? So I would be having to help my parents learn how to use that tool, that form for school, for the hospital or whatever. And sometimes I'm like, ay, ma, yo no quiero hacer eso, and all of that. But I slowly translated that into, wait a minute, why is it like that? Why can't my parents use it? I didn't think inclusion or accessibility or any of these terms. That wasn't even in my mind. It was just technology is supposed to help. So why isn't this helping my parents? Why is it leaving them out? And so that was a part of it. The second part of it is, and I don't usually say this in public spaces, so give me some space here, y'all, or give me some grace is what I meant to say. I had this health situation when I was growing up, where I had to learn how to walk again. And so I was in a wheelchair for a little bit, and I was frustrated that I couldn't get to certain places because they didn't have a ramp. And I never thought about that. I actually used to get upset or frustrated with my grandma who was in a wheelchair. So that was pretty epiphanic as a young kid. Again, I didn't think accessibility. And then later on, I had a pretty frustrating stutter that also made, communicating difficult. So this idea of disability was very present in my mind, even though I didn't know that I was thinking about it. And so I looked at tech as a way to make things better for people who experience those kinds of mismatches. So for people like my parents who can't use certain products, or people who are in wheelchairs, or people who have another kind of disability. I took those things and made them my superpower. And so I never once said, I'm going to get into tech. I was just like, I'm going to solve this problem. And now I'm here turning up, trying to do my best to do so. So that's my story.
Thanks, Miguel. I'll share mine next because I see the chat popping off about how I started my interest in computers and stuff. So let's see. My dad actually invested in a computer. He was a single dad. My parents divorced when I was born. So I grew up with both of them. But my dad had a computer at his house, and it was like Windows 95 or something. So I started playing around with that, and I was like, wow, you're like writing letters to people on this thing, you're talking to people. And so I got really into Neopets. Gaia Online, Mapleshare, all these games, but Neopets was the OG along with like Zanga. And I'll never forget this. Like I started to learn HTML and CSS when I was like 7. And I asked my dad, I was trying to copy and paste something for Neopets. And I asked my dad about copying and pasting. And I was like, Dad, do you know what this is? You know, I'm trying to put this sticker on my Neopets shop. And he was like, he got mad. He was like, what are you doing? He was like, you're going to give my computer a virus. Like, so I was just like, oh my God, my parents had no idea. And I also had no idea what I was doing, but I was learning more and more. I just like being able to talk to people and have like blog rings and like share pixel, like cow emojis and stuff, like make friends online. So I always made a lot of my friends online. I didn't even know what tech was really until like mid-career. Like, what is tech? Like, you know, I just knew that I wanted to do something with people, that I could like meet a lot of people and get a lot of different experiences, and also something creative. I was always like making little zines and books and like little kits to give out to kids in the neighborhood. I don't know. I was like always making stuff. So when I went to, I had the privilege of going to college. I studied graphic design. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, design, graphic design, that sounds creative. You know what I mean? And everyone on my mom's side is like doctors, finance, lawyers. When I told my Vietnamese side of the family that I'm studying graphic design, they literally like stared at me blankly. And my dad was also like, I guess, like I had a full ride. I was like straight A student. I was like, I'm going to college. Because my mom was one of 10 kids that came here, and she was the only one that went to college. So for me, like the opportunity to go to college was huge. And I had no idea what UX, UI, product design, I think like who knows these things. So I kind of accidentally as well, like Vivianne and you know, everyone that stumbled into tech, it was more of a way to, once I realized the impact of how many people were affected by tech, like how much like you could change people's lives. I got the job at Slack just a little bit under 2 years ago. And I think that has been life-changing for me. My parents don't really know what that is, but for me to be able to help people in some way through what I do and get paid for it, like this is amazing. So I think not knowing what this stuff is, but being able to be curious and find out different things and just try everything is so important.
Yeah, that's amazing. God, I love hearing everyone's origin story. That's the best. But I think that that's like a perfect, transition to the next question that says, how did your unique upbringing help you stand out as a designer, specifically when applying to jobs, but also succeeding on the job? I guess more broadly, how has your experience, your lived experience as a first-gen immigrant shaped your role, approach, impact, however you want to interpret that question, as a designer? So for me, I think because I've always been kind of existing between worlds is how I describe it, right? Like, you know, Brazil just always felt like a different world, a different universe, like just very different than how I was, you know, would experience life and education and socialization in America. So because I had that duality and from a very young age experienced different perspectives, you know, different socioeconomic backgrounds. I mean, my family doesn't come from any sort of money, not in Brazil, not in America, and being exposed to that, right, in such a real and raw, unfiltered way from a very young age. I guess that, you know, Vivianne, you can talk a lot about this, right? We talk a lot about empathy in this field, but actually living it and seeing it, and just that understanding that the world is bigger than ourselves, than this little bubble, than even smaller, this little tech bubble that we've built for ourselves. I bring that into the work. And I find that that kind of helps shape, you know, more inclusive products. I always try to bring in that perspective into the conversation. Try as hard as I can. You know, we all have implicit biases, but, you know, I find it a little easier for me to at least try to like break outside of what, you know, our image of an ideal user is. You know, I think of other scenarios, how people might use the products, totally unexpected ways, stress cases, because I've seen it and I've lived it. So for me, that's just, how I've lived, how I've existed and moved through this world. But, I've leveraged that, or I at least think it's an asset. And I used that, when approaching, breaking into the industry and in my work. And I find that it makes me a more successful designer. So that's me. Feel free to go off mute, anyone who has, any thoughts.
Lots of thoughts. I think for me, and again, the question was, how does like your upbringing influence your approach to design or research? Because I fall more in the UX research category. I think for me, grew up in a very multicultural, diverse home. Mom was half Korean, half Jamaican. I'm also half Nigerian. My stepdad's German, kind of like United Nations, in terms of like my household. And my mom was also very aware of the positioning that I had in the world as a Black woman. My mom is also very blunt, very unfiltered. I remember my mom sitting me down one day when I was like 8 years old. And she's like, Vivianne, you have two things going against you in this world. She's like, you're Black and you're a woman, but don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do whatever you want. And so at a young age, she instilled in me this belief that I could do whatever I want. I remember I wanted a dog and she said no. And I made a PowerPoint presentation. So I was 10. I'm like that child. I was 10 years old, made a PowerPoint presentation to convince her why I should get this dog. And she got it for me. And so my mom was really intentional about having me use my voice, and like fostering that as a kid. And my mom was also in HR. So my mom about how to document things, how to recognize things that might not be in your best interest. So I think that like multicultural upbringing, having a mom who's really intentional about encouraging me to use my voice, to recognize my voice, as well as, my mom who had some insight into the corporate world. Because I think a lot of people go into UX and are attracted to this industry because they're drawn to it because of the ideals around empathy and inclusion and being human-centered. But a lot of us aren't necessarily supported in how to advance that in environments that are inherently hostile towards it. And so I definitely had an advantage in terms of my mom kind of like at a young age, again, doing like mock interviews in middle school type of thing. Like that's like my mom, just the most. But the way that that's influenced me is it's helped me to be not only really aware of the people and surroundings around me, how can I leverage my voice on their behalf, but how can I leverage my voice on my own behalf? How can I make sure that I don't lose myself, that I can ground myself, I can take care of myself? And, I think for me, like I ended up making a career switch into UX research. And I ended up actually leaving working corporate where I'm running my own company now, humanity centered. And I think that part of the reason why I left too is I wanted more space to rock the boat in certain ways that I wasn't allowed to within my past corporate experience. And so I think that has allowed me to continue to push and challenge the industry to be better, to be more inclusive, to be more equitable, to be more just. And also too, it's helped me to remember the power of my voice and to encourage other people to step into it. Because I think what I love about this panel, what I love about the audience is I don't think a lot of you realize that there's probably someone who doesn't even realize that they're waiting for you to show up. And that excites me in terms of change and the ways that we can influence design and the tech industry. So yeah, those are just some of my thoughts.
Let me just add something here, because as we're talking about moms, detouring a little bit, I need to talk about my mom, because I think she not only, took care of 5 kids by herself as a single mom, she built a house by herself. She actually constructed the house And it's incredible. Like I still have pictures of the house that she put together in Brazil. And the other thing that she taught me too is when I was going to college and I was like, Mom, I decided what I'm going to do for college. And I came back to her and I said, I'm doing fine arts. And at the first she was like, fine arts, are you sure? And then she came back to me like a few days after and she said, hey, you should do what you believe is right for you, where your passion is. I'm pretty sure you're gonna figure out how to make a living of this. And I never forgot about this. And of course, like it was nice, but at the same time, it's like a lot of pressure. Oh, I need to get this wrong, right? Like I need to help my family and support my family. So I'm very grateful, but I think she's like super strong and she taught a lot of things, everything that I know pretty much. So yeah, props to the moms.
Yeah, I love that. Shout out to the moms, they're the real MVPs. Shout out to my mom. I feel like I don't shout her out enough. I wanted to shift it into a professional context. I feel for me, vibing off of what Vivianne said about showing up, for me, I had to really think about what that meant, because there's parts of me that I don't want to show up with. There's certain traumas that I have from growing up that make it difficult for me to show up, even though I recognize and I always make it a point to. So one of the things that I've done is looked at my background and looked at my super downers and made them superpowers. And how I translate that into a professional context is hiring managers don't want to hire people who can do things perfectly. Hiring managers really want to hire people who know how to navigate imperfect situations. And so with me and the way that I was brought up, there was a lot of challenges I had to navigate. I didn't grow up in the absolute best neighborhood. There's a lot of resiliency that comes with what I show up with. And so when I had that epiphanic moment, like, oh shit, I'm coming to spaces with a lot of preparation, even if it's not technical design. I'm way more ahead of the game than I think I am, than I give myself credit for. So obviously it's not always easy, because there are specific difficult situations. Like, I don't even want to mention examples that are hard to make into positives, but when you can, looking to your background as a strength, I feel that's something that I did later on, and I wish I did sooner, that I've done now, that I feel makes me stand out. That unique story, being unapologetic about it, even if it's tricky, like it was for me to do, because there's certain things you don't want to, wish you weren't a part of your journey, but they are, and they shaped you, and I'm proud. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I think it was a little bit rambly.
No, that's amazing. I love that. I mean, what a common theme I'm hearing, which, yeah, makes perfect sense. I knew we would get to this, is kind of the topic of resiliency, right? And just coming from that lived experience, from that background. I mean, immigrants, third culture kids, whatever you want to call them, like folks who just face so much adversity, if that's not our generation, just being that much closer to it from our parents' generation and growing up with that grit. So however much you had to shoulder or burden yourself as a child growing up, or just seeing it secondhand, exactly to Miguel's point, like that stays with you, the bad, unfortunately, sometimes, but also the good, right? And being able to leverage that into your work and crafting something positive out of it. I mean, I super relate to that. I mean, on a similar note, I guess, yeah, with that being said, another natural, I guess, transition, this topic always comes up, but as a first gen in tech, how have you dealt with imposter syndrome then, and fitting in, and, seeing yourself in the industry, in this space? It's a really big question, right? That I think all of us have contemplated at one point or another. For me, it's hard. I'm not going to pretend like I have the answer to something like this, because it's something I still struggle with. For me, it's a constant tension of knowing my worth and, feeling confident that I can bring something to the table. I've earned a seat at the table, but also this inherent, I don't want to use the word guilt, but it's there. It's this guilt almost that like, is it enough? Like there's just so much, again, generational trauma that led to me being here. Am I doing the best I can? Can I be doing more? Like, is this it? Am I doing my best? Like, do I deserve it actually? Because at the same time that, with all the trauma that came before me, there was tremendous privilege that I grew up with that my family didn't, just by way of, where I was born, the passport I hold, all of these things that I've always been very starkly aware of from a very young age. So it's tough. So I'm not, I don't know if I've cracked this code yet, but I think, it's a constant daily practice to, it's a practice of gratitude. I think that's what it boils down to for me, at least, even if I am still wrapping my mind around like, okay, where am I? How did I get here? Where am I going? At least feeling confident that like, okay, well, I made it this far. I'm doing something. And if I know anything from where I came from, where my family came from, all that they were able to do is I'm just going to keep pushing forward, right? We're going to keep building, keep growing. And that's something. So even if I don't fully embrace, the title, the accolades, whatever it might be, just that confidence and momentum. It's like, I just know I'm going to keep going and see what happens from there. Big question. I know whoever wants to take it on, good luck.
Yeah, I can jump on next. Is everybody hearing me, by the way? Okay, cool. Yeah, I think, so what I do is lead into community. So it's like trying to deal with imposter syndrome has led me to like look for more mentors and coaches that I can kind of rap with and talk about anything I'm going through. I know one thing that a lot of immigrant families, including mine, or immigrants, have to deal with is the fact that we're not necessarily doing this for just us. We have family members that we kind of have to help to support. And for me, that I'm also not just doing it for them. I think I see myself as an inspiration to others. I'm from a Caribbean country where it's normal for you to see people that are successful that look like you, but no, being in Toronto and in North America, it's not that common. So I have kind of a chip on my shoulder. I try to break down barriers for other people as much as possible. And that's kind of how that chip kind of helps me to keep pushing, even if I'm not feeling as confident. And I feel like once you don't have that healthy level of imposter syndrome, as we'd like to call it, it means that you stop trying to learn and grow. So I also kind of reframe the way I think about it, because once you think you know everything, that's when you don't know everything.
Thank you, Drew. I can speak next to this because I feel imposter syndrome every day, and I always have. And I think something that I've realized is that it never really goes away if you're constantly learning and growing, period. And in my career, I always try to apply for that job that I don't think I'm qualified for, put myself in that situation that I don't think I'm ready for, because that's the only way you'll learn and grow. So I think I've made peace in a way with imposter syndrome, like similar to the way Amy was talking about. It's just going to be there, and it matters more how you react to it. I also have, I'll get a little deep because Miguel did. So I won't get all the way deep of my childhood, but I was diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder in 2015. I was 25. And I spent my whole life thinking that I'm crazy, basically, and I'm sorry for saying that. I know that's like, we don't say that anymore, but like, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? I feel really big emotions. And so I've come a long way since then. And also my mom has also mental health issues too, that you don't talk about in Asian families, So I learned how to cope and deal. And every day I'm thinking like, if like, I think it's so much harder for me to just like put on a face and like look normal and act normal at work. I'm wondering like, wow, I bet other people have it a lot easier. Like they don't have to like hold in so much. And there's a book that I highly recommend for everyone. It doesn't matter. It's called No Hard Feelings, Managing like Emotions at Work. And the imposter syndrome I feel is partly because of my diagnosis and who I am, and you know how much I try to compensate for that. It's also feeling so lucky, like I am alive, you know, and it's like I constantly am so grateful and so lucky. But another thing I always tell people, especially like early career designers and people that I'm like mentoring, is that I didn't get here by luck alone. Like I worked hard to get here. Like I busted ass and I overcame obstacles and was, you know, resilient. So we're not lucky. Like remind yourself that like you earned this, you deserve this when it comes to stating your accomplishments to your manager, when it comes to thinking about that promotion, or coming into tech and realizing that these salaries are so skewed. Like I would never ever imagine these salaries, and I'm like, I don't deserve this. And then I'm like, you know, do you think every man that was born into money or makes way more money thinks, I wonder if I deserve this? Like, no. So I started thinking, you know what? I do deserve this. And just that, like, you know, reminding myself, like, imposter syndrome is always going to be there. I'm always going to have some doubts about myself, but you keep pushing through. Remind yourself that, you know, you earned it and you belong here.
I love that. I appreciate you. Yeah, and I think for me with imposter syndrome, I've had to be really intentional to not shame my way into gratitude. Because there's like this fine line of being grateful and then like shaming your way into being grateful. And that can just compound itself in unhelpful ways. So I think it's being aware of like how you're motivating yourself to be grateful for your current situation. I think too, like, I had a mentor who really encouraged me and reminded me that like, you know, she was like, you know, Vivianne, you're not everyone's cup of tea, but whose you are in a big way. And to lean into that and have confidence in that. Because there's this proverb that goes, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think with imposter syndrome, it's so easy to compare and be like, well, why am I not like this person? Or why am I not in this position? But just reminding myself that like, yeah, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but whose I am in a big, big way. And that makes me think about the last thing I'll say is something that my therapist has been really good at anchoring me to is, you know, she's always challenging me and reminding me that it's important to be really clear on who you are outside of what you can produce. Because I think a lot of the systems that we work in want us to tie our recognition and our worth to what we can do. And so if you can get really clear in who you are outside of what you can produce, then you can also protect yourself from the different ways that sometimes these companies and systems will exploit the things that you don't know about yourself or the ways that you haven't healed or addressed certain wounds in your life. You struggle feeling valued growing up, you better believe that some of these companies and corporations are going to find a way to exploit that and find a way for you to tie up your value within them. So one thing that's really helped me to combat that imposter syndrome is get really clear on who I am. What am I about? What do I vibe with? What do I care about? And not letting a company, not letting capitalistic systems define that for me. It's such an important anchor. And it's something that I wish I was told or realized sooner in my career. So that way, you know, past trauma wasn't compounded with corporate trauma. So I think it's just a good way to protect yourself and to not lose yourself in this work.
That's amazing. So many bars. The chat's going off. I love. I mean, that's a great, yeah, Vivianne, what you were saying about what you wish you would tell your younger self when you're first starting out? I mean, I think that concept alone is so powerful. I wonder if any other panelists, has any thoughts on that? What you would tell your younger self as a first-gen immigrant, exploring the field, looking to break into the field, stepping into the field, anything you wish you'd known back then that you know now?
Drew, it looks like you're gonna jump in. Are you gonna jump in?
I actually wanted to just add something to the last point. I was just gonna be like, especially for like newer people breaking into the field or early stage designers, I think imposter syndrome, it doesn't ever go away. I think you just get better at dealing with it throughout your career. We all experience it. We all add value to teams, no matter what stage of our career we're in. When you're newer, you'll have fresher ideas. Sometimes it's not a pro to be in a domain for too long. Like the all diverse experiences is what makes great products and great teams. And I think having that realization is going to help people to kind of deal with it a lot better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think this point that I want to make is like a hybrid of the imposter syndrome and the what would I tell my younger self. But before I say that, just some context. For me, my first gen experience is very much one where I feel like, and you hear other people say this, you're not from here and you're not from there. When I go to Mexico, I'm too American to be true Mexican. When I'm in America, I'm too Mexican. You know, they look at me as a Mexican. My name is Miguel. Like, I got one of the most common Mexican names. Shout out to my mom. Moms are the MVPs. So what does that translate to? Like, even just like psychologically, that translates to you don't feel like you belong. And so when you grow up like that, then you go into these corporate spaces, you go in with these barriers that are systemically put there, you know, because of your experiences, where you feel like, wow, I should be thankful to be here, as opposed to no, like they should be proud that I'm here. And that sort of repositioning really did wonders for me. And then from a Latino perspective, I don't know if any of the Latinos in the crowd will resonate with this, but for me, there's a lot of like toxicity, I think, when it comes to the value of respect, because sometimes that can translate to we can't speak up and stand up for ourselves. Like, you've got to be overly polite, and I don't vibe with that. And I've realized that can be dangerous. So the point that I'm trying to make is, what I would tell my younger self is, young fella, just shoot your shot. When you're in that meeting with people who don't look like you, and you have this brilliant thing to say, but something holds you back, maybe that feeling of you don't belong, maybe that thing that you were taught of respect, over respect, right? Or you know, whatever it is, say it. Because when the other person says it, you're gonna be like, man, I wish I said it. Or when there's that job that, like I think Milan said, that you see that you don't feel you're qualified for, apply for it. If you feel like the things align, like the boxes check off, young fella, shoot your shot. I wish I would go back and shoot my shot all those times, because I feel like I'm proud of where I am right now. But if I would have shot my shot all of those times, I feel like I would be twice as far as where I am now. Like, the potential would open up. And so you always hear people say, you know, be humble. So let's just be great and be unapologetic. Like, it doesn't mean we're arrogant. It doesn't mean we're like full of ourselves. It means we embrace ourselves, flaws and all, and we're unafraid to be great. And I know it sounds so cheesy, so I feel like we don't say it, but like, screw it. You know, I think especially people who grow up like this, us, should say it more often to each other. Sorry, I don't know. I got into like some weird tip there. I'm gonna shut up now.
Miguel, I totally resonate with what you're saying. And I think a lot of fear hold me down so many times, still today. I remember when I moved to US, and I think it was very hard for people to understand my accent, and I was very shy in the beginning. I remember that I had a lot of ideas that I would just comment with someone, and that person would just steal my ideas and present to leadership. So I would definitely, reinforce what you're saying. Like, don't be afraid of show up. Don't feel afraid of saying the things you want to say, because, you just live your life once, and you want to make sure that you're living it fully.
Yeah. And I think also I would 100% like encourage myself to do those same things. And I think a part of that too is like, you got to recognize that first, I would have told myself, like, Vivianne, you need to evaluate your circle, because there's some people within your sphere who don't necessarily believe in the vision that you have for yourself. And that energy, and just, being around other people who are excited, who are positive, who are encouraging, like it's really important to have more of that in your life. And I think too, the more that you lean into becoming like a better version of yourself, professionally, personally, the more you lean into that more healed version of yourself, there's some people that will naturally become less compatible with you. And to not fight that tension. I think I wish I would have let certain people in my circle go sooner, or just had better boundaries. I mean, even with family, like that could be a whole different panel. Like, there are certain things with boundaries I've had to put up with family in terms of messages they're trying to tell me or advice they're trying to give me. And I had to protect my vision, and I had to guard my focus. And I wish I had community to encourage me to do that. And so I think that's what's really special about this, is I think a lot of times we view our careers as like a solo journey, but it's meant to be a shared one, and community is so important. And so I wish I would have linked up with more like-minded people earlier on, so I didn't feel as alone in the beginning of my career. So yeah.
I can piggyback off that, Vivianne. Like, it just brought up something around like your circles and people liking you or not, and boundaries. It's like, there was something I read that was like, you don't like everyone you meet, so why would you expect everyone that you meet to like you? And I was like, yeah, it's not wrong. And so I think I would tell my younger self, this is more general, not really like my young designer self, but it's that you don't have to be liked by everyone. I still am telling myself today, I'm almost 30, it's like, you really have to, if you believe in it and you like it, like, people aren't gonna necessarily like what you do, your decisions, your actions, or you, and that's totally okay. Like, you don't have to be liked by everyone, and that's kind of liberating.
I think it's a big trope as well. Like, absolutely, +1 to all of that. I think it's a trap that a lot of us marginalized folks fall into, of feeling the need, the compulsion to be agreeable, to be palpable, to other people, right? To not take up space, because for a multitude of reasons, we feel like we don't deserve it, or we haven't earned it. So that just ties into everything we've said, right? 100%. Drew, is your hand raised?
Yeah, it is.
How polite. Love. See, so polite, so thoughtful.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, don't sell yourself short. Think about all your experiences, whether or not you finished a boot camp. There's people that haven't. Whether or not you've gotten an interview, there's people that haven't. Whether you've gotten a job offer, there's people that haven't negotiated your salary. There's people that haven't. I'd say, like, make sure you don't sell yourself short. I take mentoring very seriously, and I've spoken to a lot of designers, and I'll be looking at like their portfolios and stuff. And I'm like, this is better than mine, and they lack confidence. I feel like a lot of us don't know our value, but everybody has value. As I said earlier, everybody has something to contribute. So don't sell yourself short, and believe in your abilities.
I love that. That's the word. Yeah, don't sell yourself short. And I think tapping in again, the theme of everything we've talked about, a lot of us have touched on our lived experiences growing up, moments, when we remember we were kids and this is how I was raised, and this was a moment with my mother, with my, with the socially growing up, all of these things. It's tapping into that as well, right? Like Miguel was talking about, that gut feeling, something that deep down inside, a little voice inside of you. There's history there, right? You come from a bloodline of experience and resiliency and grit that brought you to this moment, and that's there, right? So, I mean, that can't be lying dormant, right? There has to be a reason for that. So tapping into that, believing in that, almost surrendering to that, and using Miguel's words, let yourself be great.
Yeah, Amy, can I just add something to that really quickly?
Please.
I mean, I'm just like I'm reflecting in real time, or trying to, because I'm also trying to listen. This conversation is so beautiful, but it's possible because of so many different diverse experiences. And so speaking about, allowing yourself to be great, also being hella proud of where you're from. I'm proud Mexican. I'm a proud Latino. I didn't grow up in the best neighborhood, but I'm proud of my Brooklyn borough, all of these things. And to vibe off of something Vivianne said earlier, if that company rejected you because of you, they don't deserve you anyway. So you don't want to work there anyway. So when you meet this rejection, or I feel like I'm getting I'm getting too high. I'm calming myself. When you experience these rejections, this pushback, for me, one thing that has helped me is this mission is bigger than me. Like, I'm being too selfish by allowing myself to be too hurt by this. There's something bigger I'm trying to accomplish here. That I'm trying to find that door that is big enough that I can leave open behind me. So if that door rejected you, if that door didn't open for you, it was too small for you. It wasn't big enough for you to leave open for those who are coming after you. So it's all good. If you're feeling imposter syndrome, if you're feeling like you're not good enough, it's because you're new. It's all good. And if you are feeling like you're not far enough yet, you're not, because you're meant to go more. It's all good. So all of these things are not black and white. There's nuance here, and I think allowing yourself to discover this nuance is that's the key to being able to identify that is all good. Just keep on going, and it'll all be good. Yeah.
Yo, pop off. Don't hold back.
I mean, I'm so glad. I don't even have a glass of wine. Like, I usually have a little something, but yeah.
Hey, but I think what you're getting at too is like the importance of mindset, and like being able to like pivot more quickly from some of those unhelpful messages or discouragement. Like, I love what you said of, if that door didn't open for you, it's because it was too small. Like, let's go. That mindset work is so important. So important.
No, this is amazing. I feel like we could literally chat about this all night. And so many people in the chat, this is the best part, right? That so many people identify with what we're talking about, having had this kind of community, this kind of space to, find similar experiences, share these stories. Thank you so much, everyone here, for making the time, making the space. I hope we could do this again, because this has been incredible. Just hearing your perspectives, putting it back out there into the community, and hopefully helping other folks too.
Yeah, that was so amazing. Thank you so much, Amy, for hosting. We could go a little longer if y'all want. I just don't want to keep y'all too long since it's getting late.
One more question.
Yeah.
One more question.
One more.
Yeah, we can do
one more. Okay. What's it gonna be? There are a lot of good ones in here. This is Oh, it's a tie. Practical or philosophical? As a first gen in tech, how do you balance financial security with intellectual and professional curiosity? I think that's a really good one.
Pick the hardest one, Amy.
I know. I could have played it safe. If we're going over, like,
I'm not going to go
to be
first,
good.
but I will answer, but not first.
Can you read the question again?
As a first gen in tech, how do you balance financial security with intellectual and professional curiosity?
I know this is easier said than done, but I feel like you do your best work and you excel the most when you're like engaged and you're curious. And a lot of times we think as the two things as like that they can't coexist. But it comes back to like reframing as well. Like if you like what you do, you're gonna excel at it. But also obviously there's the that thinking, okay, I need security, I need comfort, and I can't take that leap. But that's what I said. I feel like if you're doing what you love, especially in design, you'll excel and you'll be able to take more chances.
Here's a spicy take. I didn't come from money, neither my mom, especially not my mom's side, and not my dad's side either. So like today, I make more than my parents, and that to me is wild. They don't even know what I do, but they respect me now that they can tangibly see that I'm doing well. And I think that for me, two things super important about a job. One is that it's a supportive learning environment, and two, it has good health insurance. Like mental health is like beyond important for me. So I have to balance both of those things with, do I like what I'm doing? And the answer is not always. Like sometimes working at Slack, like working on product design, designing software, it's hard, it's technical, it's not always super glamorous and exciting. Like, you're documenting design systems and pushing pixels. But I love the people I work with. I love how much I can learn, the opportunity to work with so many different people and, just absorb everything like a sponge. Because I always think everyone around me is smarter than me. So I'm just like, yes, I'm at this company. It's a big one. And there's so many people to learn from. But I think at the same time, you should, all of this matters so much to me: financial security, taking care of my parents when they're older, having enough money to support my younger sister who's autistic. Like these kinds of things I'm always thinking about. And it's possible now that I have this job in tech, but I would never take a job for the money alone, because that will crush your soul. To Drew's point, when you do something you love, even if you don't love all of it all the time, but generally when you feel, a little something in your heart when you work on something, that will lead you to far more success than, taking a job for money ever would.
Yeah,
Definitely. Plus one to that. Yeah, just a quick 2 cents. I completely agree. And I think for me, that's almost like, because I come from a background of self-preservation and a very survivalist mentality, right? Of my parents, my family back in Brazil, being blessed with self-actualization and actually finding fulfillment in what I do. Like that's almost a rebellious act, I feel like, right? To like kind of have the privilege to, maybe step away from like that capitalist system even for a second and be like, no, wait, but like I'm actually doing this for myself as well. And I enjoy this. And I want to find inherent value and virtue in this, as opposed to just having it be a utility. So there's a balance there. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're out. Miguel was actually the one who said this to me early on, like we're out here building generational wealth, and that's okay too. So whatever that means for you, whatever side of the spectrum you fall on, it's okay. And it's okay for that to change.
yeah. And I feel like for me, it's kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier, it starts with a mindset shift. And part of that is a mindset shift out of a scarcity mindset. This idea of how much is enough? How much is enough degrees? How much is enough money? And the reality is with tech, especially when you start working in these bigger companies, you'll never like feel like you've reached enough because they'll always keep throwing more cash at you or more stocks or whatever it may be. So part of the shift is shifting out of the scarcity mindset so you can live more from a place of freedom instead of fear. And one way that I've done that is getting really clear on like, what is my enough? Like, I actually like get clear on a number. What is enough for you in order to live the life that you want comfortably, whatever it may be? And then for me, and I'm coming from an American mindset, Black woman in this trash fire country. And for me, I'm like, how do I get out of this codependent relationship with my employer so that I don't over depend on them for my security? So part of that is then, I need to educate myself on building wealth and understanding wealth. Because when you're from the American point of view and mindset, a lot of times wealth is around, okay, you save, you throw a little money in your savings account, maybe you invest if you've even gotten that far on your journey and you throw some money in your 401k. But I've been on this journey, and it was probably the most severely triggered in the beginning of the pandemic of like, oh, these companies don't give a damn about me. I need to figure out how to protect myself and feel more secure. So thinking about what are other ways in terms of like revenue and income I can bring in. How, instead of investing and throwing money into a savings account, I need to be investing in the S&P 500 because there's an 8 to 10% return versus my savings account, which is like 1% if I'm lucky. So part of that is just like, knowledge is power here. And I think a lot of times why people feel stuck, in part because we've taken such a passive relationship to money and wealth. And so for me, a part of like, it's getting clear on what's enough for me. It's starting to like educate myself, which has been kind of triggering in some ways, because it then brings up all the ways that you just didn't have that knowledge or experience growing up. So it's definitely, it's a journey to work through. But I think what that ends up doing then is because you're able to start to build out more pockets of security financially, you're able to feel more free to lean into the things that you desire and that you enjoy. You feel more free to push back on some of the BS that you might see in terms of design or in your companies. You feel more free to like step into the power of your voice. And so I feel like I'm still newer on that journey, but I do think that mindset shift out of that scarcity mindset, getting super clear on like what's enough for you, and then starting to do the work to untether yourself from a codependent relationship on corporations, I think is really important.
One quick thing, just vibing off of that. This will be my final contribution. I'm gonna slightly deviate from the original question, just vibing off of what Vivianne said, and referencing the comment that Amy said that I made to her. I definitely think about generational wealth often, and when I think about this, I think about, well, my path to getting to this point where I can even have an opportunity to think about generational wealth wasn't traditional. So why the heck is my path to achieving it going to be traditional? So working as a product designer at a private company is not the only way to achieve that goal. We often in these spaces, we talk about diversity from a background. We got to diversify our future. We got to diversify where we're going. So Google and Facebook are not the only companies out there. The most amount of money I ever, I gotta like settle down. The most amount of money I ever made was at a nonprofit where I became a director in my 20s as a Mexican American. And I can't say that because it sounds arrogant, but I'm gonna say it in this room because I want to inspire someone to get that bread there. There's so many different paths. You could be a YouTube content creator. You could open up a freelance contracting thing. You could make a course on Skillshare on your life. oftentimes people, when I say to make content, they're like, oh, I'm not an expert yet. You're an expert in your journey. So but we got to get creative. There's so many different ways. And I think that we're all like chasing the same kind of journey, but every single journey is different. So go get that bread, diversify your future. And if you're serious about generational wealth, a traditional path is not going to get you there. You got to get creative.
Miguel, so good. You got yourself out of breath. Amazing. Oh my God. I'm so happy. This has been amazing. What a space, what a group of people, bars on bars, like incredible. And we got a first gen in tech Discord group on Design Buddies.
Yeah, that was amazing. I
Real
really
time.
love listening to all y'all's stories and what y'all had to say, especially y'all an expert on your own journey. So go create content, go live your dreams. Fang and manga are not always a dream. I used to think that way growing up because my parents are like doctor, engineer, lawyer. Both parents kind of work in tech. So yeah, with that, we're gonna do a quick group photo. And I seen a lot of y'all requested a space to connect. So I went ahead and created a first gen designers channel in Design Buddies. So y'all are going to join. I'll link the direct channel in the chat. Thank y'all for your request. There's a lot of interest, so I decided to just go ahead and create the channel. So it's there. Let me know if you can access to it. If you just joined Discord, make sure you go to rules, unlock channels, hit verified, and it should be really close to general, and that link should work as well. And yeah, we love real-time community building. Super grateful for all of our speakers here. I love what y'all had to say. And yeah, and also feel free for everyone to drop their socials, but we'll do a group photo so everyone can turn on their cameras. Let me see. Okay, so now we can see everyone. So I'll count down a few seconds for everyone to turn on your cameras. Definitely for all of our speakers, you can find all the speakers' social links in our Luma link, but we also really want to encourage every one of y'all on Zoom and also some Design Buddies to connect with each other. So feel free to drop your socials and linked in the Zoom chat or on Discord. And yes, I love saying y'all. Sometimes I say like all y'alls, and a lot of my coworkers are from Texas, so I think they say it because of them. But no, I'm from California, but I say y'all a lot because y'all wholesome. As you can tell, I had a lot of coffee today. Yeah, so wow, we have a lot of friendly faces here. So I'm gonna do a group photo. If you don't want to be if you don't want to turn your camera on, you can react and you'll still be in. So we'll do a static one first and then a wave for our Instagram story. At Design Buddies, we like to spice things up over here. So we don't just do a photo, we do a wave just to spice it up a bit because we're the buddy fam. With that, I'll count down 5 seconds and y'all welcome to drop y'all's socials and connect with Design Buddies. I'll drop mine as well and then do the group photo. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. Oh, you can bring a plushie if you want to. I forgot about that. It's not my plushie bear. But look, Kimmo says hi. Anyway. All right. Ready, set, smile. All right, we're gonna do a wave on our Instagram story at design.buddies. So you can say hi over there. I'm going to make sure I'm logged into the correct Instagram account once I accidentally posted my own Instagram story on the Design Buddies Instagram. So I gotta double check here. Ready, set, wave. Let me open up the correct window. There we go. All right. Hello, buddies. We just had a wonderful talk on stories of being first gen in tech with our lovely host, Amy, and panelists, Milan, Drew, Koji, Miguel, and Vivianne. Make sure to catch the recording on our YouTube channel. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. Awesome. We like to do things over here at Design Buddies. It's on our story in case you want to see yourself on Instagram. Yeah. I see a lot of links in here. Yeah, just feel free to drop all your links, connect with each other, drop your links on Discord as well. Yeah, with that, we're going to stop recording on YouTube, but that was really amazing. And we'd love to